I'm Riley Brooks, 32 years old. 2 months ago, on Thanksgiving night, in front of 30 relatives crammed into our West Hartford estate, my parents handed my sister Blair a $13,000 luxury celebrity cruise package and gave me a crumpled $2 lottery ticket with a mocking smile. "This is all that's appropriate for your situation, Riley," my mother said. Her voice carried across the formal dining room, sharper than the silver dessert spoons, loud enough for everyone to hear. They laughed, all of them. They didn't know that little ticket would change everything. $100 million changes everything, but not in the way you might think. Before I tell you this story, if you find it compelling, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely want to come along for this ride. And let me know where you're watching from, what time it is there. I always love knowing where my new friends are tuning in from around the world. Now, let me take you back 2 months ago to Thanksgiving night, the night everything began to crumble. The Brooks family Thanksgiving was always a production. Not in the warm Hallmark movie sense, more like a high-stakes Broadway stage where everyone performed their assigned roles under the cold glow of the crystal chandelier. I pulled into my parents' cobblestone driveway at exactly 5 p.m. sharp, carrying a homemade autumn salad and a bouquet of deep burgundy cafe au lait dahlias I'd grown myself in my local community plot. The flowers were rich and velvety, perfect for the late November New England season. I'd spent 3 months nurturing them through the humid Connecticut summer. My mother, Lydia, opened the door before I could knock. "Oh, Riley." Her eyes flicked to the bouquet, then away with a dismissive sniff. "Still playing with dirt, I see. I thought you'd have outgrown that hobby by 30. Behind her, I heard the high-pitched squealing of someone who had never worked a day in her life. Blair had arrived. Lydia rushed past me, arms outstretched. "There's my golden girl! Oh, that Prada dress is stunning. Is it new?" I stood in the doorway, holding my flowers like a forgotten prop, watching my mother embrace my sister like she hadn't seen her in years. It had been barely 2 weeks since they went shopping in Soho together. Inside, the house buzzed with relatives, aunts, uncles, cousins I barely recognized from our family's country club circle. Robert, my father, sat in his bespoke leather recliner, deep in conversation with Julian Thorne, my brother-in-law. He didn't get up when I entered, just a nod, barely a glance over his gold-rimmed reading glasses. "Riley, good, you're here," Robert said, not looking away from Julian. "We need help with the catering staff setting the table. The linens need steaming." Of course, I was here to work. The living room formed a semicircle around Julian as he described his latest private equity consulting deal in Lower Manhattan. Everyone leaned in, captivated by the scent of his expensive cologne and even more expensive lies. I knew better. Julian was slippery, the kind of man who'd sell his own shadow if the margin was high enough. But I had no proof, just instinct. Aunt Nora caught my eye across the room. She gave me a small, sad smile that tasted like pity. Later, as I arranged monogrammed silk napkins alone in the dining room, my mother introduced me to a distant cousin. "This is Riley, my younger daughter. She does gardening. I think something with plants." "Landscape architecture, Lydia. I designed sustainable green spaces for corporate buildings across the tri-state area. Lydia waved her hand as if swatting a fly. Same thing, dear. It's all just shoveling mulch. I kept folding napkins. Some battles aren't worth fighting. Not yet. I was refilling the crystal water pitcher when I heard them. The kitchen door was slightly ajar, and voices drifted through the scent of roasting turkey and rosemary. Lydia, Robert, and Blair. They were speaking in that hushed, conspiratorial tone families use when they think no one's listening, the tone of an inner circle closing its ranks. The cruise leaves December 15th, Lydia was saying. 2 weeks in the Caribbean, the whole family. You, Julian, the kids, your father and me, even Grandma Evelyn, if she's feeling well enough to travel first class. My hand froze on the pitcher handle. What about Riley? Blair asked, not concerned, just acknowledging my existence like an item left off a grocery list. Silence. Then Robert cleared his throat. She's busy with work. Besides, a trip like this is expensive. We don't want to humiliate her by asking her to contribute. She's barely scraping by with those little park projects. They hadn't asked if I was busy. They hadn't asked if I could afford it. They'd simply decided I wasn't worth including in their perfect New England Christmas. I pushed the door open. I'm not invited. 3 faces turned. Lydia's smile tightened into a mask of polite annoyance. Robert suddenly became very interested in his double espresso. Sweetheart, Lydia started. This trip is to celebrate Julian's promotion to senior partner. It's really more of a family thing. I've finished. It's not about you, Riley, Blair said, her voice dripping with artificial honey. We just didn't think you'd be interested. You're always so independent. Independent. The word they used when they meant outcast. I was about to respond when I noticed movement behind me. Grandma Evelyn stood in the hallway, her frail hand gripping her custom-painted walker. Her eyes met mine, sharp, knowing, filled with a fire that 30 years of Lydia's nagging hadn't managed to extinguish. She reached out and squeezed my hand, said nothing. But in that silence, I felt seen in a way that had nothing to do with my tax bracket. Riley, help your grandmother sit down, Lydia instructed, already steering Evelyn away like a piece of furniture. She shouldn't be standing so long. Before she disappeared around the corner, Grandma Evelyn looked back at me. Her lips moved silently. Call Gabriel Ross this week. I didn't understand, but I would. Soon I would understand everything. The dining room fell silent when Robert stood up, tapping his vintage Cabernet glass with a fork. Before we eat, I want to take a moment to thank everyone for being here. He smiled, the practiced, predatory smile of a man who'd spent his life closing deals and cutting corners. Family is everything. 30 people nodded in agreement under the heavy gaze of ancestral portraits. I counted 30 witnesses to what came next. This year, Lydia and I wanted to do something special for our daughters. He gestured grandly toward Blair. Blair, sweetheart, come here. Blair glided forward, all Upper East Side grace and designer heels. Lydia handed her a thick, cream-colored envelope, beaming. For you and Julian and the kids, a 14-day Caribbean cruise, Royal Suite class. The room erupted. Applause, gasps of delight. Blair burst into tears. The pretty kind. The kind that looks perfect in an Instagram story. "Oh my God! Thank you!" She threw her arms around both parents. "This is too much! $13,000? I'd seen the itinerary on Lydia's MacBook last month. I wasn't supposed to, but I had. Then Lydia turned to me. The applause faded. The room grew uncomfortably quiet, the kind of silence you find in a courtroom before a sentence. "Riley, honey, come here." I walked forward on wooden legs. She pressed a thin, cheaply printed envelope into my hands. Inside was a single slip of paper. A lottery ticket. Mega Millions. $2. "This is what suits your current situation, dear." Lydia's smile didn't reach her eyes. It was as cold as a Connecticut winter. "Who knows? Maybe luck will find you since hard work hasn't seemed to pay off." Someone snickered, then someone else. Julian leaned back in his chair, smirking as he adjusted his Rolex. "Luck's a long shot when you don't have the Ivy League brains to back it up." Laughter rippled through the room. Blair covered her mouth, giggling. "Oh, that's so cute, Mom. Maybe she'll win $5 and finally buy a decent pair of shoes." I stared at the ticket in my hand. My face burned, but somewhere deeper, something shifted, cracked, broke free. I smiled. "Thank you, Mom. I'm sure this will be exactly what I deserve." No one noticed the razor edge in my voice, but I did. The laughter was still echoing when a voice cut through the mockery. "Robert, Lydia, this is not right." Everyone turned. Grandma Evelyn stood at the edge of the room, her small frame trembling with the effort of standing without her walker. Her voice was thin, but it carried with the weight of the family fortune. "You cannot treat Riley this way. Not in front of everyone. Not ever." The silence that followed was different from before. Heavier, uncomfortable. No one had expected the Brooks family matriarch to speak up against the golden couple. Robert's jaw tightened. "Mother, please. I am not finished." But Lydia was already moving, her Manolo Blahniks clicking against the hardwood. She wrapped an arm around Grandma Evelyn with practiced, suffocating efficiency. "You're tired, Mother. Let me take you to lie down." "Lydia, I'm not—" "The doctor said you need rest. Come on." I watched, helpless, as my mother guided my grandmother toward the guest room. Grandma Evelyn looked back at me over her shoulder. Our eyes met. She nodded once, deliberately. Then her gaze shifted just slightly toward her old Hermes handbag sitting on the armchair by the window. The one she always carried. The one no one was ever allowed to touch. The door closed behind them. The room exhaled. Conversations resumed about summer homes and hedge funds. The moment passed like it had never happened. But I saw Aunt Nora watching me from across the room. Her face was pale. She looked like she wanted to say something, then thought better of it and took a long sip of her wine. I excused myself to the bathroom, locked the door, stared at my reflection in the gold leaf mirror. The lottery ticket was still crumpled in my fist. $2. That's what they thought I was worth. But Grandma had said something. Gabriel Ross, a lawyer. Why would my grandmother, who had no lawsuits, no legal troubles in her long, quiet life, want me to call a top-tier estate lawyer? I didn't know yet. But something told me I was about to find out that the Brooks family empire was built on a foundation of sand. It was nearly midnight when I started cleaning up alone, as usual. The heavy silence of the West Hartford house felt suffocating, a sharp contrast to the performative laughter that had filled it hours before. Most guests had left, their BMWs and Audis long gone from the driveway. Blair and Julian had retreated to the second-floor sunroom to plan their cruise wardrobe, scrolling through high-end resort wear on their iPads. My parents were at the front door, seeing off the last of the relatives with the kind of forced hospitality that only people with something to hide can manage. I was gathering fine bone china dishes from Robert's private study when I saw them. The room smelled of expensive bourbon and old leather, the walls lined with Ivy League diplomas that suddenly looked like expensive wallpaper for a crumbling empire. Papers were scattered across his mahogany desk like he'd left in a hurry. No longer the organized office of a successful businessman, but the desperate workspace of a cornered man. I saw bills with red final notice stamps, a letter from a debt collection agency in New York, and beneath it all, a document that made my blood run cold. It was a loan agreement signed by my father, co-signed by Julian Thorne. The amount was $180,000. The interest rate was 32%, predatory, the kind of subprime deal you only see from shadow lenders who operate in the dark corners of the financial world. My hands were shaking as I flipped to the next page, the heavy bond paper feeling like lead in my fingers. It was worse. The collateral for this high-interest nightmare was Grandma Evelyn's house. The federal-style home where she'd lived for 50 years. The house that was supposed to be her sanctuary until the end. There was her signature. Shaky, uneven, a ghost of her former elegant script, dated from 6 months ago. The same month, she'd fallen on the ice and spent 2 weeks hospitalized, heavily sedated on grade A pain medication. They'd coerced a 90-year-old woman into signing away her legacy while she didn't even know what day it was. I pulled out my iPhone, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears like a rhythmic war drum. I photographed everything. Page after page of the betrayal, the predatory clauses, and the fraudulent signatures. I didn't know what I would do with these pictures yet. I didn't have a plan, but I understood something now with terrifying clarity. The favoritism wasn't about love. It wasn't about Blair being the golden child. I was the threat. I was the one with the analytical mind, the one who might ask questions about unpaid property taxes or notice things that didn't add up in the family ledger. They needed me small, silent, and economically paralyzed. That's why I was handed a $2 lottery ticket while they toasted to a $13,000 vacation. I slipped out the back door, photos saved to a hidden cloud folder, my mind racing faster than a midnight train to Manhattan. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to stay quiet. 1 week after Thanksgiving, I called Aunt Nora. She picked up on the second ring, her voice hushed, as if she were being watched. "Riley? Aunt Nora, I need to ask you something. Is Robert in serious debt?" Silence. Long, heavy silence that confirmed my fears more than words ever could. "You know something, don't you?" I pressed. "How did you find out?" I saw the papers in the study. A loan agreement with Julian. A lien on Evelyn's house. "Riley?" Her voice dropped to a terrified whisper. "Don't talk about this on the phone. The walls have ears in this family." Why not? Because there are things you don't know yet about Julian, about the investment firm he really runs. He's not a consultant, Riley. He's a shark. My grip tightened on the phone. What things? Not here. Not like this. Meet me Saturday, the Starbucks on Elm Street, 2 p.m. And Riley? She hesitated. Don't trust anything Julian tells you. He's a sociopath in a bespoke suit. The line went dead. I sat in my small one-bedroom apartment, staring at the lottery ticket on my kitchen counter next to a pile of blueprints. I'd forgotten about it since Thanksgiving. It had been sitting there, crumpled and ignored, a $2 metaphor for how my parents viewed my worth. Maybe it was time to check the numbers before I threw it in the trash. I pulled up the Mega Millions app, entered the numbers, and watched the little loading wheel spin, a digital circle of fate. The first number matched. My heart skipped a beat. The second number matched. I stopped breathing, the air catching in my throat. Third, fourth, fifth, all 6. I refreshed the app, convinced it was a glitch in the software. Same result. I went to the official website on my laptop. Same numbers. Same result. $100 million. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat there perfectly still for what felt like hours. The hum of the refrigerator the only sound in my silent apartment. Then I did the first thing that came to mind. I Googled, lottery winner, what to do first, legal protection. And then I remembered Grandma Evelyn's whispered words, Gabriel Ross. It was time to make that call to the most expensive lawyer in the state. I didn't tell anyone, not a single soul. For 3 days, I walked through my life like a ghost wearing human skin. I went to my landscape firm, answered emails about irrigation systems, and smiled at clients who had no idea they were talking to a woman worth 9 figures. Every time my phone buzzed with a passive-aggressive message from Lydia or a bragging photo from Blair, I felt nothing. The number in my bank account, once it cleared, would be larger than anything they could imagine. But that wasn't what consumed me. It was the shift in the power dynamic. For 32 years, I'd been the afterthought, the gardener, the one who worked for every dime. Now I had leverage they couldn't buy, steal, or manipulate away from me. I didn't call my parents. I didn't call Blair. Instead, I stepped into the glass and steel offices of Gabriel Ross. Miss Brooks. His voice was warm but professional, the voice of a man who handled billionaire divorces and corporate takeovers. Your grandmother said you might reach out. She told me to call you. I don't know why. Perhaps you should sit down. There are some matters we need to discuss regarding the lottery and your grandmother's estate. You've won something. $100 million. Another pause, longer this time. I saw the veteran lawyer's eyebrows shoot up behind his designer frames. Then we definitely need to talk. But Miss Brooks, the matters your grandmother wanted me to discuss with you existed long before any jackpot. They're about systemic financial abuse and the deed to her house. My stomach dropped like a faulty elevator. What about her house? It's better if I show you in person. Can you come tomorrow at 9 a.m.? And Miss Brooks, keep that ticket in a safety deposit box. Do not mention this call to anyone in your family, especially not Julian Thorne." I hung up, staring at my reflection in the dark phone screen. The lottery ticket had given me money, but Gabriel Ross was about to give me something far more valuable: the tactical map to dismantle my family's lies. Gabriel Ross's office smelled of archival paper, expensive mahogany, and the kind of quiet, understated power that only century-old New England law firms possess. He was older than I'd expected, early 60s, with silver hair groomed to perfection and kind, analytical eyes behind handcrafted titanium frames. He was the kind of lawyer who didn't just win cases, he dismantled opponents with surgical precision. "Please sit, Miss Brooks." He gestured to a chair across from his massive desk, a solid slab of dark wood that felt like an altar to justice. I sat, my posture straight, my mind finally sharpening after days of shock. "What did my grandmother want you to tell me?" He slid a heavy, cream-colored folder across the desk. 10 years ago, your grandmother established a discretionary trust fund in your name." "A trust fund?" The room tilted on its axis. "I never knew. Why wouldn't she tell me?" Evelyn was afraid. Gabriel's expression softened into something resembling genuine empathy. "Afraid your mother, Lydia, would find a way to liquidation it for her own social climbing. She wanted you to have a safety net that no one else in the Brooks family could touch." I opened the folder with trembling hands. Legal documents, bank statements, fiduciary agreements, all of it real. $500,000, I whispered. $500,000 sitting in a Vanguard account while I struggled to pay for my greenhouse heating bills. "There's more," he said gently. "The house. Your grandmother's West Hartford estate. I saw the papers. My father, Robert, essentially traded it away." He nodded, his jaw tight. "The deed transfer was signed 6 months ago, the day after Evelyn was hospitalized with a broken hip. She was on heavy doses of Dilaudid and Percocet, barely coherent. Signing a legal document in that state isn't just unethical, it's a direct violation of probate law." I felt sick, a cold wave of nausea washing over me. "That's fraud. That's elder abuse." "Potentially. The signature is jagged, clearly lacking the motor control of a conscious signer. The timeline is maliciously suspicious, but proving coercion is difficult without a direct witness to the signing." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a low, serious tone. "Miss Brooks, your father owes Julian Thorne $180,000. The house was the collateral for a private bridge loan. If he defaults, which he will given his current cash flow crisis, Julian gets the property at 5% of its market value." The pieces clicked into place like the tumblers of a safe. The favoritism, the cruise, the $2 lottery ticket meant to mock my poverty. I was never meant to find out until Grandma Evelyn was moved into a low-budget state facility and Julian owned the family legacy. "What can I do?" "With your resources now, Riley, you have options that would make Julian Thorne's head spin. We can challenge the deed. We can anonymously pay off the debt to remove the lien. We can protect Evelyn by making you her legal guardian with full power of attorney." I looked at the trust fund documents, $500,000 from Evelyn. Then I thought about the winning Mega Millions numbers on my phone. 100 million from a crumpled lottery ticket Lydia thought was a joke. Let's protect her, I said, my voice finally steady. And let's do it in a way they never see coming. Okay, let me pause here for just a moment. I know what you're thinking. Riley, what are you going to do? Are you going to go full Count of Monte Cristo and destroy them? But this isn't just a revenge story. This is a story about reclaiming a narrative that was stolen from me. If you want to find out how the invisible daughter became the most powerful person in the room, let me know in the comments. Have you ever been treated like an extra in your own family's movie? Hit that like button if you're on my side. Now, let me tell you what Aunt Nora revealed under the flickering lights of that West Hartford Starbucks. The coffee shop was nearly empty when she arrived, the scent of burnt espresso hanging in the air. She looked different than at Thanksgiving, older somehow, the stress of carrying family secrets etching lines into her face. She slid into the booth across from me, clutching her designer purse like a lifeline. "Thank you for meeting me," I said. "I should have said something years ago." Her voice was barely above a whisper, lost in the hum of the milk steamer. "But Lydia, you know how she is. She freezes people out if they don't follow her script." "Tell me about Julian." Nora's hands trembled as she reached for her latte. "Julian Thorne is not a consultant. Not really. He's a predatory shark who lends money to desperate, high net worth people whose credit has been shredded by bad investments. He uses interest rates that would make a mob boss blush." I suspected he was shady. "There's more." She pulled out her phone, scrolling through her gallery with a look of pure disgust. 2 months ago, at your parents' anniversary gala, Julian left his phone unlocked on the marble counter. I wasn't snooping. I was just looking for mine. She turned the screen toward me. Text messages between Julian and someone named Diana. The words were explicit, cruel, and damning. "Can't wait until this is over. Once the house deal closes and I liquidate Robert's equity, I'm out of here." "What about Blair?" I asked, my stomach twisting. She served her purpose. The social connections were useful, but she's a vacuous doll. Divorce papers are already drafted and sitting in my safe. I stared at the screen, watching the digital evidence of my sister's life being dismantled by the man she worshipped. He's cheating on her. For 8 months. Diana is his so-called executive assistant. Nora's eyes welled up. "I wanted to tell Blair, but I was scared. Julian, he has ways of making people disappear from social circles. Does Blair know?" "I don't think so. She's so wrapped up in being the perfect Connecticut wife, the perfect daughter. She doesn't see the vulture perched on her shoulder." I sat back, processing the sheer scale of the rot. My sister wasn't just my enemy. She was another victim of Julian's long game. She just didn't know it yet. "Thank you, Aunt Nora." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You did the right thing." She wiped her eyes. "I'm sorry I waited so long, Riley. I'm so sorry." "It's not too late. The foundation of this house is rotten, but I'm an architect. I know how to bring a structure down safely." The nursing home smelled of industrial antiseptic and fading lilies. Grandma Evelyn's room was small but sunny, with windows overlooking a neglected garden that desperately needed professional intervention. My professional intervention. She looked smaller than I remembered, her skin like fine parchment. But when I walked in, Her eyes lit up with the same incisive sharpness I'd always known. Riley. She reached for my hand. You came? Of course I came. I pulled a chair close to her hospital bed. Grandma, I talked to Gabriel Ross. Her grip tightened, her knuckles white. Good. He's a good man. He knows where the bodies are buried. Why didn't you tell me about the trust? Because your mother would have found a way to leach it dry. Her voice was firm despite its weakness. You were the only one who never asked me for anything. You never looked at me and calculated my net worth. That's how I knew you were the one who deserved the Brooks legacy. Tears burned my eyes. Grandma, and the house. They made me sign papers, she continued, her voice trembling with anger. I don't remember it clearly. Everything was foggy. I was in so much pain. I know, Gabriel explained. We're going to fix it. I'm going to buy the debt and bury Julian. She studied my face. There's something else. Something you're not telling me. I hesitated. Then I leaned in and told her about the lottery. The $100 million. The ticket her own daughter had given me as a cruel joke. Grandma Evelyn laughed. Actually laughed. A sound like rustling dry leaves. Karma, she whispered. I always believed in the cold, hard logic of karma. I'm going to buy back your house, I said. I'm going to make sure you can live there again, with a view of the garden we're going to build, whatever it takes. Her hand found my cheek. I don't need you to take revenge on anyone, Riley. I just need you to be free, to protect what matters more than a zip code. I will. I promise. Promise me something. Anything. Don't become like them. Don't let the 9 figures change who you are. Don't let the money turn your heart into a balance sheet. I kissed her forehead. I promise. Some promises are easy to make. This one, amidst the smell of antiseptic and the looming shadow of the Brooks family collapse, I intended to keep with every fiber of my being. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, the Brooks family gathered again, this time for a lavish bon voyage dinner at a waterfront steakhouse in Greenwich before the big cruise. I was invited, not as a guest, but as unpaid logistical support. Riley, can you arrange the floral centerpieces? You're the plant person. Riley, the caterer needs direction on the filet mignon temperatures. Handle that? Riley, make sure Grandma Evelyn's nurse knows we'll be gone for 2 weeks and check that her Medicaid paperwork is in order. I did it all with a smile that felt like cold marble. I played my part, the quiet, undervalued daughter they expected. No one knew about the team of elite lawyers from Ross and Associates working overtime on my behalf. No one knew about the Delaware-based LLC I'd formed to claim my winnings anonymously, Emerald Horizon Holdings. No one knew that in 3 weeks, my liquid net worth would exceed the combined assets of everyone in this room 5 times over. The dinner was a parade of narcissistic self-congratulation. Julian held court, describing the cruise activities with the air of a conquering hero. Snorkeling in St. Bart's, fine dining at the captain's table, and exclusive spa treatments for Blair at $300 an hour. Too bad you couldn't join us, Riley, Blair said, her voice not even bothering to simulate regret. But someone needs to water Lydia's rare orchids while we're in the tropics. I don't mind, I smiled, sipping my sparkling water. I hope you all have an amazing time. The ocean has a way of bringing things to the surface. Robert clapped Julian on the shoulder. This guy, best thing that ever happened to the Brooks bloodline. Julian caught my eye, his smile flat and predatory, like a shark assessing a distressed asset. Hey, Riley. He leaned closer, his voice dripping with Ivy League condescension. Buy any more lottery tickets? Maybe you'll win $5 next time and can finally afford a car that wasn't made in the last decade. The table laughed. I let them. You never know, I said pleasantly. Luck has a way of rewarding those who are patient. Lydia raised her Chardonnay. To family, to fortune, to the Brooks legacy. Everyone drank. I raised my glass and took a small sip of the coming storm. The morning they left for the cruise, I stayed home. You're not coming to the private terminal to see us off? Lydia had asked the night before, her voice carrying that familiar note of manipulative guilt disguised as disappointment. I have a client meeting, a major urban project, I'd replied. She'd sniffed. Always working with you. No wonder you're still single. As if I had any other choice, as if they'd ever offered me anything but the crumbs from their table. I spent departure day in Gabriel Ross's office, finalizing the paperwork. The money would clear within the week after taxes, roughly $62 million in a high-yield account. I was reviewing foreclosure defense strategies when my phone buzzed. Blair. Riley, something's wrong with Dad's Amex. It got declined at the boarding gate for the shore excursions. Can you Venmo me $500? I'll pay you back when we dock. I stared at the message, the irony so thick I could taste it. The first time in my entire life that Blair had asked me for money. I knew why the card was declined. The 32% interest on Julian's bridge loan was hemorrhaging Robert's accounts dry. The house of cards was starting to implode under the Caribbean sun. I typed back. I don't have $500 to spare right now. Ask Julian. He's the financial titan of the family, isn't he? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Never mind. Julian sorted it. I didn't ask how. I knew Julian was just feeding the debt to ensure he could seize the West Hartford house the moment they returned. Day 3 of the cruise. I posted a single Instagram story. Just me standing in front of Grandma Evelyn's house, the golden hour light hitting the brickwork. The caption was simple. Home restoration project starting soon. Protecting what matters. I knew Robert would see it. He checked social media obsessively to track his own perceived status. The same day, the Connecticut local news ran a story. Mega Millions jackpot claimed. Winner chooses anonymity via LLC. The ticket had been purchased at a Quick Mart 3 miles from our family home. The exact same shop where Lydia had bought my insult ticket. I didn't plant that detail. The universe just has a wicked sense of humor. Aunt Nora, bless her heart, dropped the link into the family group chat. Did anyone hear? Someone from our area won $100 million. They bought the ticket at that little shop on Henderson Avenue. The chat exploded. Cousins speculating. Uncle Barry making jokes about early retirement in Florida. Then, a private message from Lydia. Riley, that lottery ticket I gave you for Thanksgiving, you still have it, right? I waited an hour, let her sweat in the tropical heat. Yes, Mom, I still have it. Why? Just curious. No reason. Hope you're watering the plants. That nervous emoji. She never used emojis unless she was losing control of the narrative. By evening, my phone was a thermal hazard. 79 missed calls. The messages ranged from manufactured warmth, "Hey, sweetie, just checking in," to shrill desperation. "Riley, call us back now. This is a family emergency." I turned my phone face down on the nightstand. Tomorrow I would call them, but on my terms and with a digital audience. At exactly 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I clicked Join Call. Their faces filled my MacBook screen, crowded together in the ship's exclusive Commodore lounge, a tropical sunset bleeding purple and gold through the windows behind them. "Riley!" Lydia's voice was cloying, like cheap corn syrup. "There's our girl. We miss you so much, honey. We really wish you were here enjoying the midnight buffet." Robert added, his voice strained, "Family comes first, kiddo." Blair waved from behind them, wearing a $1,000 sundress. "Hi, sis. You look good. Is that a new designer silk blouse?" They'd never once commented on my appearance unless it was to criticize. Julian sat slightly apart, arms crossed over his linen shirt, watching me with that predatory, calculating gaze. "Riley, good to see you. Let's talk business." "Thank you all for making time," I said, my voice as steady as a heartbeat. "I know you're busy enjoying your luxury escape." "Family always comes first," Lydia declared. "Always." "Interesting choice of words," I replied. "So, Robert, I hear you've been having some technical difficulties with your credit lines." The silence was deafening, only the faint sound of the ship's engines in the background. Lydia leaned forward. "We heard some interesting news about a lottery ticket." "Yes," I said, the word dropping like a guillotine. "I won." The screen erupted. Everyone spoke at once, a chaotic symphony of greed and false joy. I let them exhaust themselves. When the chatter died down, I spoke again. $100 million. Lydia's hand flew to her pearl necklace. Robert's mouth opened and closed like a gasping fish. Blair looked like she might faint into her Mai Tai. Julian recovered first, his internal calculator already spinning. "Riley, that's life-changing capital. You're going to need sophisticated asset management, tax shelters, diversified portfolios, protection. I can bring you into my firm as a preferred partner." "I have a lawyer, Julian," I interrupted. "Sure, but family helping family." "Julian," my voice was razor sharp, "before we talk about investments, there are some things this family needs to see." I clicked share screen. The first document appeared, the predatory bridge loan with Julian's signature. "This," I said, "is a loan agreement between my father and my brother-in-law. $180,000 at 32% interest. A deal designed to fail." Robert's face went from sunburned to ghostly white. "Where did you—" "And this," I continued, clicking to the next PDF, "is the fraudulent deed to Grandma Evelyn's estate, signed while she was heavily sedated in the ICU. Gabriel Ross has the medical logs and the forensic handwriting analysis. This isn't just a bad deal, Julian. It's a felony." Lydia's mouth opened, but no sound came out. "The signature is a forgery by coercion. My lawyer is filing the civil racketeering suit on Monday." "Riley, this is family business," Robert barked, his voice cracking. I'm not finished. I clicked again. This time, high-resolution screenshots filled the screen. The messages between Julian and Diana. These are the logs from Julian's burner phone. He's been seeing his assistant for 8 months. Blair's face crumpled as she read the words vacuous doll on the screen. Once the house deal closes and I strip the equity, I'm out. Blair served her purpose. I read it aloud, the words echoing in the high-end lounge. Julian stood up, his chair scraping violently against the floor. Those are fabricated. She's hacking us. She's mentally unstable. Am I? I looked directly at my sister. Blair, look at him. Look at the man who convinced you to sign those travel insurance forms that were actually waivers for his firm. Look at him and tell me I'm lying. Blair turned to Julian. Her voice was a broken whisper. Julian? He didn't answer. He grabbed his Rolex and walked out of the frame. Lydia started wailing, the sound of a social climber falling from the ladder. Robert just sat there, stunned into a catatonic state. Here's what's going to happen, I said quietly. I'm using my winnings to pay off the bank directly and void the lien on Evelyn's house. The deed is being transferred into an irrevocable trust. None of you will ever set foot on that property again. Riley, please, Robert pleaded. We're family. Family doesn't steal from 90-year-old women in hospital beds. I ended the call before anyone could respond. The last thing I saw on my MacBook Pro was pure, unadulterated chaos. Blair sobbing into her hands, Lydia shouting something I couldn't hear as she tried to grab the laptop, and Robert sitting motionless, looking like a man who had just seen his entire social credit score evaporate in real time. Julian Thorne was nowhere to be seen, likely already calling his fixers in Lower Manhattan. My West Hartford apartment was silent, just me and the fading New England sunset bleeding through the window. I'd imagined this moment for weeks. I thought I'd feel a rush of adrenaline, a surge of vindication. Instead, I felt hollow, a strange kind of exhaustion that comes from finally dropping a heavy weight. I'd just run a marathon I hadn't trained for, and my lungs felt thin. My phone exploded within seconds. Notifications from Venmo, missed calls from blocked numbers, and a frantic stream of texts from the family group chat. I turned it to silent and set it face down on my reclaimed wood coffee table. Then, a knock at my door. I tensed. No one was supposed to know I'd moved into this discreet, high-security rental. Through the peephole, I saw Aunt Nora. She looked as exhausted as I felt, her trench coat dampened by the evening mist. I let her in. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug that smelled of vanilla and rain. You did good, honey, she whispered. You did what none of us had the courage to do against the Brooks machine. Did I? My voice cracked, the silence of the room finally getting to me. I just dismantled my entire family on a Zoom call. No, she pulled back, holding my shoulders with firm, maternal strength. They destroyed themselves years ago. You just turned on the high beams. You just showed them the wreckage they'd been living in. My phone buzzed again, a text from Blair. I didn't know about Julian. Riley, I swear to God I didn't know. I'm so sorry about everything. I need time to think, but I'm sorry. I read it twice, 3 times, looking for the hidden agenda in her looping digital script. "What do you think?" Nora asked. "I don't know." I set the phone down. I don't know if she's sincere or just calculating her next move in a world where I hold the bank account. 2 weeks later, Gabriel Ross called me with the kind of news that makes $100 million feel worth every penny. "It's done," he said, his voice crisp and professional. The deed challenge went through faster than expected. With the medical records from Hartford Hospital and the witness testimony from your Aunt Nora, the bank agreed to void the original transfer. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding since Thanksgiving. "So the house is still technically owned by the bank?" Robert defaulted on the bridge loan payments the second Julian stopped co-signing. But here's where your Emerald Horizon LLC comes in. I'd already made my decision. Pay it off, whatever it costs. It'll be approximately $215,000, principal plus interest plus the legal fees to transfer the deed cleanly into an irrevocable trust in your grandmother's name. "Do it," I said. The money was nothing, a rounding error on my daily interest statement, but what it represented was the reclamation of a legacy. "There's one more thing," Gabriel said carefully. "I've drafted a protection clause. Once the house is in Evelyn's name, no member of the Brooks family, and that includes your parents, can claim any rights to the property. They are legally barred from using it as collateral ever again. And after she passes, the estate goes directly to you, Riley, per her original wishes before the coercion began." I thought about that crumpled lottery ticket, the mocking smile on Lydia's face. $2 to get rid of the inconvenient daughter. "One more clause," I said. "I want it in writing that Evelyn can live there for the rest of her life with round-the-clock private nursing care, a specialized chef, and a world-class physical therapist, completely paid for by the trust." "Already included, Riley." Julian Thorne tried to control the narrative. Of course he did. He told anyone who would listen at the New York Yacht Club that the screenshots were deepfakes, that I was mentally unstable and jealous of Blair's success. He said I was trying to tear a prestigious family apart. It might have worked once, before social media, before Diana. Diana, his assistant, was apparently not pleased about being abandoned in the middle of a federal investigation. 3 days after the video call, she went nuclear on TikTok and Instagram. Photos of them in Hampton's hideaways, Amex receipts for jewelry, and intimate messages that made the ones I'd shared look like Sunday school verses. She released a video statement, her makeup smudged and her voice shaking with fury. "Julian Thorne is a liar and a financial predator," she declared to her growing audience. "He told me he loved me. He told me he was liquidating his marriage, and now he's trying to pretend I don't exist." Blair filed for divorce before the cruise ship even docked back in Miami. But Diana wasn't the only one with a grievance. Within a week, 2 of Julian's business associates came forward to the state attorney general's office with complaints about predatory lending and securities fraud. The interest rates he'd been charging weren't just unethical. They were illegal in 3 states. I didn't lift a finger. I didn't have to. The dominoes fell because they were built on a crooked table. Robert declared Chapter 7 bankruptcy the following month. The boutique investment firm he'd owned for 30 years? Gone. Liquidated to pay off debts that had been accumulating like a slow-moving glacier long before I found those papers. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not pity, just a strange, peaceful emptiness, like a room that had finally been cleared of clutter. Karma, Grandma Evelyn said when I told her, sitting in her own living room in West Hartford for the first time in a year. I told you I believed in the cold, hard logic of karma. Lydia called me 3 weeks after the cruise ended. I almost didn't answer, but something made me press the green button on my iPhone. Riley. Her voice sounded like she'd been crying for days, all the East Coast polish stripped away. Riley, you've ruined us! No, hello? No, how are you? Straight to the accusation. I didn't ruin anything, Lydia. I told the truth. The truth? She laughed bitterly. Everyone knows now. The neighbors, the country club, my charity board. I've been on that board for 18 years, and now they won't even return my emails. I'm sorry that's happening to you. Truly. Are you? Are you really? Her voice cracked. You had $100 million. You could have helped us. You could have saved Robert's business and kept our reputation intact. I could have subsidized fraud. I kept my voice steady, the voice of an architect assessing a failed structure. I could have pretended Julian wasn't a predator. I could have let you steal Evelyn's home. We're family, Lydia, and Grandma is family too. Mom, I said quietly, the word feeling heavy and foreign. I'm not blocking your number. If you ever want to have a real conversation, one where you acknowledge what you did, not just what you lost, I'll be here. But I won't listen to you blame me for the gravity of your own choices. You're so cold. When did you become so cold? I learned from the best, Mom. She hung up. 1 year later, I barely recognized my own life. I still work, not because I need the ROI, but because I love the feel of the soil and the logic of a well-designed landscape. My firm, Brooks & Associates, has expanded into urban regreening. I have an office in downtown Hartford with floor-to-ceiling windows and a waiting list of clients. The lottery money sits mostly untouched in diversified ESG funds. I bought a modest mid-century modern house near Grandma Evelyn. Nothing flashy, just enough space for me and Clover, the rescue golden retriever I finally adopted. The Evelyn Brooks Foundation is my real legacy. We award full-ride scholarships to young women pursuing STEM and the arts, women from families who didn't understand them, who were told their dreams weren't practical or that their voices were too loud. Each acceptance letter I sign feels like a small act of defiance against every dinner where I was told to be quiet. I visit Grandma Evelyn every day. Some days she's sharp, telling stories about the old Connecticut elite. Other days we just sit together in comfortable, high-end silence, watching her garden grow. The hydrangeas are coming in beautifully, I told her one afternoon. You planted those? She reminded me. They're still yours, Riley. Everything good I have is because I shared it with people who valued the person, not the paycheck. People ask me all the time, did $100 million change your life? The answer always surprises them. No, not really. What changed my life was that single crystallizing moment when I realized I had spent 32 years waiting for people to see my value who were never even looking. The lottery ticket was a gift, not because of the jackpot, but because of the revelation. The people who should have loved me only cared when they thought I had something they could exploit. If you're watching this and you're in a family that doesn't see you, know this: you don't need a winning ticket to be free. You don't need permission to divest from toxic people. Build your own table. The money gave me options, but the power was always mine. I just didn't know it until someone handed me a $2 ticket and told me that was all I was worth. They were right about one thing. That ticket was exactly what I deserved. It was the key to my exit. I'm Riley Brooks, 33 years old, landscape architect, CEO, granddaughter, and most importantly, a woman who finally stopped asking for a seat at a table that was beneath her. That's the real jackpot. Thanks for listening. If this resonated with you, drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. Know your worth and never settle for a $2 life.